Hey everyone, today I'm going to look at, for the first time in a little while, something not super obscure, but a little more uncommon for VGM reactions, but a series that I would not be surprised if it has really great music and have dabbled in a little bit and want to play one day, which is the Legend of Heroes kind of Trails series, the Kiseki series. And specifically, I'm going to look at a track that was recommended a while back for Trails in the Sky SC, aka Second Chapter. This is essentially Trails in the Sky 2. The first one is probably the most internationally best known game. A lot of people have played it like on Steam. I played through part of it, got stuck a long time ago, and I haven't gone back in some years, but with the remake coming out for the first Trails in the Sky game, I think later this year, I am going to give it another try, and I'm really curious about it. But it's part of the kind of overarching, if you're not familiar with the series, there's a series that started with a game called Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes, which kind of has an overarching Legend of Heroes series. Started back in '89, Dragon Slayer sub-series, some other games, and ended up really getting bigger internationally in 2004 with Trails of the Sky. And the sequel was released in 2006, and it got an HD remaster in 2013 for the PS3, but 10 years after its original release for the Vita, it got one called Second Chapter Evolution. That's what this track is from. It's, I guess, going to be a remastered version of the original track. I believe it's a boss theme. I don't really know anything else. I know that there are potential big story spoilers for this trilogy especially, and that it's best if you want to play it saving it spoiler-free, which is what I'm doing. So I'll just be spoiling some music, but I don't know like anything else other than it's going to be a battle theme. So yeah, we have a track called The Merciless Savior from Trails in the Sky SC Evolution, aka Sora no Kiseki. And yeah, I don't know too much about it. That's it. I expect it to be intense. We'll find out together. Not a lot of guesses. A nice dramatic title for a boss theme. Yeah, let's go. Ooh. Lovely little scoops on the violin. Sounds so good. Yep, there we go. There's the drop. Okay, so again, 30 seconds in, we get into the meat of this piece, but a wonderfully recorded violin sound. I'm curious, maybe at the end I'll peek back to the original track and see if it sounds as well recorded. I'm not sure if it will. Actually, let's do it right now. That sounds interesting. So I have to go to the original version of this track. So this is what it sounds like. Okay, versus the original track sounds great too, and I'm sure I would enjoy doing that as well, but I agree with this choice. It sounds a lot more beautiful, and I believe the original commenter mentioned as a Falcom game who also does Ys that the music might be similar. I definitely hear a lot of Ys in this. I don't know the composer or the sound team. I didn't look that up yet, but it reminds me of it for sure. Just this sort of like soft synth background, just supporting it harmonically, and then these sort of celestial twinkles that are actually bouncing back and forth between the stereo sides. Something about that does remind me a lot of some areas in Ys. The sounds you might hear in some games that have an ice cavern or a crystal cavern. I feel like that style of track shows up in more contexts more frequently in Ys games and maybe Falcom games in general. There's something they like about that sound that oftentimes I hear relegated to an ice cavern in a lot of other games, say like in Zelda. So just something about the compositional approach. Anyways, I'm gonna listen back to it, let the drop go through at 35 seconds-ish, and get into this heavy percussion. Probably gonna have some rock elements. Ys is very big on that, so it might be here too. But then again, I could be totally wrong that they don't have a similar sound team or composer. So I best check that out at some point. But yeah, even then, sometimes the production studio might have similar directives for the soundtracks or be used to working or commissioning soundtracks in a similar way. So they could have a similar sound for organizational reasons beyond the creative team directly doing it. That's not impossible. In other words, there can be a Falcom sound, just like there's a Nintendo sound, even if it's different composers. There's a way they would like their games to sound overall, regardless of who's making it. Anyways, back we go. But yeah, we just get these tinkles back and forth. A little swell, like a wave coming in and then pulling back out with the tide. Washes over. Peak in that melody. Beautiful. And then, yeah, this is that kind of ice cavern sound to me that feels very Ys. Again, beautiful climbing melody. But it's all set up for the drop. I like it. It's not actually that heavy, which I prefer here. Yeah, get that synth still doing a little more. Starting to sound more like organ. Ooh. Great mix-up in the feel. Again, it only really lasts like 20 seconds with that increased percussion, more rock section. Doesn't actually get that rock. It doesn't really bring in a lot of bass or guitar. A little bit, but it's not going that far yet. I don't know if it might be giving it room to grow for the rest of the track. That's possible. But I also just like it because it's not totally throwing away what it built up in the first 35 seconds, which I thought sounded really great. Beautiful violin, great little celestial kind of sound with it. That's a cool vibe. It's a boss, so of course it's hard to make this work in the context of the game if you were to stay at that intensity the whole time. It's going to need some intensity. You're certainly going to be fighting. So just practically, of course, it's going to ramp up. But I like that it doesn't entirely depart from the initial vibe yet. It might still go there. And yeah, entirely switches again after 20 more seconds. The synth kind of organ support starts to move around more, change chords more often. But yeah, let's just move into the next section. Yeah, I got this kind of bass line running. A little more percussive violin. These keys with these fast chord changes and just this great kind of bass groove going on. And something about it almost reminds me of some of the bass groove going on the Mario RPG soundtrack with Yoko Shimomura. If you're familiar with some of that, stuff like Barrel Volcano or like Smithy's theme. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Something about the tone of it comes to mind. It's a little Shimomura-esque is what I would say, which is an amazing comparison to make because, you know, she goes hard on those soundtracks. But yeah, we get this little parallel climb up here that sounds great. Yeah, it's surprisingly groovy. Another little climb up. Violin's getting really fun. Now we get this kind of, keyboard ostinato, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, just running repeatedly, almost a little Final Fantasy-esque with the Genova theme. Not exactly, but kind of close to that Genova style descending line. A lot of layers being built up by now, but still keeping it from being overly heavy. It can still go somewhere. Another raise up in tension, maybe an upwards harmonic shift. Really energized. I'm just enjoying the violin melody. It keeps having these like 20-second sections that come in with the cymbal crash and raising the intensity again. Sometimes I think it's coming with a harmonic shift. Sometimes, I'm not positive, it might be sometimes that whole step upwards that just energizes a piece. Kind of sounds like that. I'm not sure. Sometimes I don't think it's necessarily changing changing keys. But yeah, it keeps doing these small sections, builds up to another kind of cymbals crash and percussive hit to shift over a lot of, drops, you could say, between quite short sections, which I think is pretty cool because it gives you like, it repeatedly gets a sense of a build into intensity and then moves on and gives it just enough space to build an intensity to another drop. And that kind of cycle, I think, is good to keep the energy really high in a boss fight. It's not like the most, it's not trying to be overbearingly powerful in its instrumentation like some super metal boss themes might be, which are awesome too. Not saying that's a worse way to go, but this is another way to have that much intensity. Ooh, I like that sound. Yes. Oh, what a great synth. It's replacing the violin. Oh, that's addictive. Back to violin. Something cool it does there is we get this slow just descent all the way down. It's a bit quiet in the mix, but when that really, kind of meaty, lovely synth we just got in the last section to replace our main instrument of the violin took over for a bit. When it passes back to the violin, it just kind of, it fades off, but slides down in pitch for a while, for a few seconds. See if you can hear it as we go through this again. I'll try to mime it while it's happening. Yeah, it just slides down in the back. I love that. Got the Shimamura bass line. Ooh. Oh, there's some new material. Oh. That's beautiful. Great transition. Epic organ. Ooh. Now that's unusual in the middle of a long track. Oh, holy shit. Pardon me? Oh, fuck, that's good. What a duet! Amazing voices. I can't pause it, it's too good. A little twinkle coming back. All these voices together. Great polyphonic writing. Oh, this twinkling bass line coming up. And we're back to a new section. Oh my god. It was a long section to where I really want to re-listen to it right now, but I think I'm just going to listen to it myself like 3 more times as soon as this video ends. There's so much to talk about there that maybe I could walk through it and analyze some things, but again, I'm not necessarily here to make sure that I analyze for the sake of, if you've ever heard me talk about it before, like I have no goal of being educational on this channel. The whole point of pointing out a lot of things and breaking things down is because I think that's one of the primary modes that a reactor can show appreciation for what they're experiencing. The main benefits of 1, seeing if somebody likes it, 2, getting a sense of like their overall impression and them communicating a review / just what they thought. But 3, like actually showing that appreciation by noticing things at certain points, and breaking it down is my way of noticing different things that I appreciate about it. I don't necessarily feel the pressure to be like, I want to go back and analyze that so that people can learn something from it. No, I'm not here to teach anybody. If that happens by accident, that's awesome, but not really an educational approach. But there is just so much to talk about. That's so good. Oh man, my heart's kind of racing a little bit because that was intense. Like it dropped down in intensity first. Let's go back to, I will step through it a little bit. Yeah, we started getting these little bit of double stops in the violin and just raising, a couple sequences going up that are new material, 2.5 minutes in, getting some new stuff. Great section. Yeah, and there we get a little bit of a dissonance even after the da-da-da, and then goes back down and hits a little bit of a crunch. Sounds a little off for a second. Right there, a little off key on purpose. Yeah, rises up to there, not the most massive explosion of intensity, and it only drops down part way. It pulls back a lot, comes into this. It's down, these vibrating big organ chords. We get timpani in the background. Just like completely different feel. Don't know where it's gonna go. And then the willingness to not just drop down to this grand, rich, proper organ and, this subtle reverberating timpani, just this soft but intense mood that you can create in a purely symphonic classical texture suddenly. Totally, in terms of the instrumental forces, a total contrast to, the first couple minutes of this track that we're using a mix of sources of instruments, all of a sudden going to just what you could do on the symphony stage with just a couple things. I think this just wonderful, focused sound of that, and then going even deeper, dropping it out to almost a foreboding emptiness. Just what an incredible shift. And just holding this one organ note. Oh, and then just this creepy build up a little bit of that, almost horror movie-esque kind of sound. Again, that little shimmer, and then we get just this beautiful, vibrato, and even that first syllable in this male voice, in this tenor, I assume. And he kind of descends down there. Yeah, I mean, I guess it mostly just steps down again with that sibilant kind of noise it ends on there. It does give it that sense of that disappearing sound that matches some of the other noises we've been hearing in this section. Like I said, that kind of, scary movie-esque kind of sound is very sibilant, that kind of S sound, and having that last syllable in that phrase end on it also lets it disappear with a similar noise, except this time it's from the human voice. Yeah, and just, I mean, from the first instant the voices come in, it was chills for me, because it's just the last thing you expect in this piece. I was like, this is cool and has some great elements for 2.5 minutes. I'm really glad I picked to do this. Just kind of a very obscure suggestion from the list I've gotten, but I really appreciate the requester for this. God damn. And then the voices only get... I don't think I even have... I don't think I even have the ability to analyze everything going on in this part. Just organ steps up, we're getting this amazing duet. And it continues. We get the choir coming in. Get more of the timpani. Get that twinkling coming back in. Where do we get the transition? And I'll hear the full transition again. But I will be listening to this piece more. That is one of the best, just pure orchestra, timpani, tenor and soprano, and then a choir comes and supports them. Just beautiful work. Compared to a classical piece of music, it's very short. That's how it tends to be with game tracks, that when they do things like that, they're usually one small section of a piece, and runtime wise and amount of composed material musically is less. It's just, that's the context of how art form works with games. You can find this in classical context. It's much longer in a full piece, and it can be tempting to just wish there was so much more of that here, but game music just works differently. In this context, It's an incredible stretch and worth listening to over and over. But just, it's 1 6-minute track. I wonder if it like is mapped to loop the first kind of half and then only transition when a phase in the boss fight has been reached, or if it really is just this track that plays through and the mood just completely changes regardless of what you're doing in the fight, which in some ways you could say is a worse application of it in context. In other ways, though, some of the most stunning moments of game soundtracks to me have been when the soundtrack has a huge mood shift that's impressive and attention grabbing that isn't related to what you're doing. Like in the video game music quiz I just published, there's a track, The Last Surviving Wilderness, or Terra Ultima is an alternate title from Final Fantasy 13-3 Lightning Returns, one of my favorite classical style symphonic pieces in any game ever. And it just hits this pure strings 4-part chorale for like 20 seconds out of nowhere, and it's just a field theme. And when I was playing the game and I heard that, like it's a piece I love because I ran into it firsthand, and it just took my breath away. It didn't match something that was changing in the game, but in some situations, that's not a detraction, actually. It's okay if sometimes it is really okay or even fantastic if a piece of game music totally shifts vibes and really takes your attention without being synced to a shift in the game action. Usually they are, because it just makes more sense and helps them serve their role in this multimedia creation, help support what's going on, enhance the experience. But sometimes the music gets to be the experience itself. So all that to say, it wouldn't be the first time that a piece has taken the forefront with a mood change of its own to become the focus, but this also could be something that is actually applied into the game to not progress there until phase 2 has been triggered or something like that. Maybe there's a talking scene in the middle. The boss kind of reveals darker nature. It certainly supports that atmosphere, absolutely. This is a phase shift like a Ludwig the Accursed and Holy Blade type of, you can listen to those back to back, but of course they fit a massive shift in energy in the fight and have to transition from one track to the next. But it's on the OST as a single track, so I'm really curious if it stands alone or if it's cut into parts. Anyways, so much to talk about there, so I apologize for the ramble, unless maybe I should say you're welcome if this is why you watch me. But yeah, so fucking good. What a track. I was so surprised by that, genuinely, not exaggerating anything, as I'm not one to make much of a reaction face at anything. It's just not my personality, but I will talk about it and explain what I think in depth. So back to the intensity, we're going to drop and shift back into the high intensity part of it, but it sounds like it is, again, new material in the track. It's not from the prior section. I love that timpani. It all sounds so good. What's that tenor? Oh, we're even groovier. I guess it is very similar to the section before. I don't know if it's the same. I got that groove and bass line, the violin melody. You can dance to this. All right, let's get it. Yes. Just climbing up and up. Yes. Oh, those great high notes. And I love pieces that have these almost improvisatory violin solos that are just really harsh and feel very tangible and are expressive and a little bit aggressive. Love those. We're getting pretty close to that here. Again, if you took my game music quiz, you'll hear a track that is the same kind of vibe, even further with the violin, but it's what that whole track is about. And I just love that stuff. Like, it sounds so good. I love also going to the Symphony for Violin Concerto or some chamber music violin sonatas or something. Like, love that too for the same reason. But I love when there's these kind of aggressive solo parts in games. Not all of this I would say is aggressive, but there's some of it that is. And I don't know, violins do aggression and violence really well. Maybe there's a reason why violins rhymes with violence, or it's a homonym or something, bad joke, but kind of applies. A violent violin sound is one of my favorite things. I love a violent piano sound as well, but violins can really... Cellos can too, and violas, but I think violins have a special register for just harshness, really leveraged artistically. They can really sound like they're like a knife, create almost like a grinding, and then you can have an angularity to the way it's soloing, the way that the really high notes can sound like a wail, and then that has its own kind of harsh energy. Obviously, I'm appreciative of all of this. I really enjoy that kind of art happening and love a lot of different examples of it. Anyways, we'll finish up the track and see if it coasts out on more of this. But yeah, I think a new section of the violin soloing. Actually, I want to hear that entrance again. I think it's right here. What a great way to start this solo. Again, a lot of things take a melodic arc from low to high and back down, but I find it really cool when that pattern's disrupted a bit with a purpose, and there it just really slides up and starts very peak, just grabs your attention that this is going to be a great solo. Anyways, I'll skip back to close to where I was, and we'll keep going. Yeah, we did that step up before, and it did that step back down. Bit of a duet now. Again, that bass line just going hard. Get the choir back in. Again, new melodies. Great combination of sounds. Ooh. We got a great piano glissando, or maybe just a very rapid and very full arpeggio, because it did sound like it had a harmonic sort of motivation there rather than just a typical glissando across the piano. But one of the others, or one of those things happened, which is just a great little thing to use quietly in this transition. Let's hear it again. Yep, across the whole keyboard. Now we're going to hit a loop point, I assume. Or a fade out. Unless they made an ending for the OST. Now we're going to fade out the bat. Man, what a track. I know exactly why that got recommended to me. Wow, someone knew what they were doing. I hope this is a track that actually other reactors look at. I've never ran into somebody doing it with the game music reactions, but I hope this one is one that other people do. Kind of like with the Kirby, the Two Planets Approach, the Roach Limit. That was something I had no idea about. I knew Kirby music has always been good. In fact, like Kirby Air Ride is one of my favorite soundtracks really in a game I've ever played. Was a huge fan of that game. And Sakurai's projects always have great soundtracks. I'm aware of like Kirby could be great musically and well known, but I had no idea that was like a very frequently reacted to track because it's amazing. That track is awesome. It's such a multi-movement boss theme. And I hope this one gets some attention like that. I know the Kiseki series, Legend of Heroes / Trails, is not as popular as something like Kirby, but it's pretty well known in the RPG kind of community. Anyways, I hope people have been spreading this track around for reactions as my requester did for this for me. So please keep spreading the word about this piece. Send this to other reactors if they haven't seen it. If someone like Marco Meatball hasn't reacted to this piece yet, he would really like it. Yeah, I'm sure he would love this. So yeah, try to get people to react to this if it's not already popular, which I hope it is. I'm also going to peek back at the composer of this game. Okay, we have a team with Sonoda, Unisuga, Takeshita, Jindo. I think I know Yukihiro Jindo maybe, and Ishibashi. I do have a big kind of database I'm building of composers across games I know, and I've already been putting in hundreds of composers' names. I can't say for sure if I recognize this compositional team, and it doesn't seem to be a section on the music for this game. So yeah, I'm not sure if I can find more details about it, but it is... obviously I'm gushing about it. I thought it was already pretty good, and then it took a turn and just handled that section beautifully. I would have, despite how good the violin sounded, I would have never expected the vocal recording and the choir and stuff to be that high quality. Oh, wait, and you know what? 1 second. Let me go back and hear it in the original, because I did bring up the original track just out of curiosity, and I still have it open. This is where the beginning sounded like this. So where do we shift? Ooh. Wow, similar but very different. Happens earlier too. Maybe it's synth voices, or it's just real voices with an effect, but it's odd. It's such a different impression. Wow, that moment sounded so different, almost like an entirely different piece. It was a great timpani build and swell, and the choir leapt up. Right here. Wow, that's so epic. It sounds really different. Oh my god. But the thing is, in this case, it's all choir. There's no tenor and soprano. The first line the choir did sounded very different, but it was the same notes that the male voice opens with. In the Evolution remake version. Let me go back to this. Do we get that same moment? Did I forget it? I mean, it's hard to choose. It's hard to not go with the... I just clicked to a random moment in this, and that soprano voice is stunning. But there's a unique vibe that the use of just the choir sound, potentially, an artificial choir, which, would be probably expected, but it isn't necessarily. It could just have an effect or be the, music compression or something. But it just sounds very different in a way that I think they both stand alone. And they sound quite different enough to be their own tracks. But I want to hear if we have that kind of epic moment here of transition. I guess it would have been that, but it sounds so different here. Much smaller timpani build, doesn't have that crash. It's not 3 chorus voices layering on top of each other. They sound quite different. I'm glad I peeked because those are very unique tracks. All right, time to go back to the playlist, and I'm going to add it here. And clearly part of it belongs in dramatic classical. On the other hand, I don't know about... The sections with more energy do primarily use violin as the main melodic content, but the rest of it isn't particularly orchestral. It uses other instrumentation. So it's a little bit harder to say where to put it here. I think it might still go under dramatic classical. No, because these are very classical pieces. These are much more pure classical than this. I think it's got to go and figure out later, just like the Kirby one I mentioned. What is this piece called again? I can't see it on the OBS window. The Merciless Savior. One could delve into this title as being really interesting. Obviously, a savior and someone merciless are pretty much two opposites. That is, you know, a very oxymoronic kind of title that implies a lot story-wise. Hopefully not enough to make me feel like I've had anything spoiled. Probably not. I can't really extrapolate to where I would apply that to a character. But it does, it's a twist of a title. A Merciless Savior really is thought-provoking. It's a bit of a good and evil in the same name. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope the few of you interested in the less popular JRPGs, but still these are legendary series, but I hope those of you interested in them had a good time this reaction with me. It was a little bit scattered just because it was so unexpected what happened in this track that it like broke my structure for the video. I was like, I'm not sure. Do I like listen to it again? Do I compare it with the original? Do I go back and what do I do? Like I actually got totally discombobulated by the track. Great suggestion. I will see you in the next one. Peace.